Hey y'all, it's Mel. I'm gonna come at you with some omega energy. Now there is this thing that I think about a lot, but I understand better now that I've learned, grown, and matured. Good, evil. If we think about it and just such stark contrast, we can find it anywhere. Good versus evil. As it pertains to all things that are going on right now, and everybody knows something going on, they just don't know what the hell it is, a lot of people. Or some people not even paying attention. But understand I could be wrong about this, and other people might have different ideas, but I don't see things as stark in that way. I see things from a place of balance versus imbalance. Now, if you can try to see things from a place of balance versus imbalance, there's a lot of places and spaces for forgiveness and mercy and grace and all those things, because we've all lived in moments in our lives where we were imbalanced and had to find our balance again. So we start from the micro and bring it up to the macro. I think that's the best way to help folks understand. If you're grieving a loss of a loved one, then in those moments you might feel a bit of imbalance, because right before that happened, you were living your life, going to work, going to school, shopping, hanging out with friends, without that extra element of grief and shock and worry on your mind. So in some way, just that one instance can cause imbalance. Okay, if that is not your normal set point, that means that there's an imbalance in your energy vector, in your energy field, that you have to first process, understand, and then figure out what your new normal is so you can find balance in that. That's the micro of it, right? Now, as it pertains to the macro of it all, the same too can apply if you really think about it, okay? Now, in times of grief or in times of hardship, there are those who choose, hey, this is a great moment to try to take advantage of the situation. Like, say for instance, when there are people who are justified in their anger and rage, but instead of using that anger and rage to commit violence just for violence sake, they decide to march and protest, okay? And have their voices be heard fully for the first time ever. And I'm speaking of Black Lives Matter. But there were people within that subset that took advantage of that situation in two different ways. Some of them were committing acts of violence because they were taking advantage of other people's grief and rage and anger that were justified. They're like, well, because of this, it's okay to steal. Because of this, it's okay to hurt and maim other people. So I'm going to take advantage while these other people are justified in how they feel. We're going to take advantage of what's going on with them to take from the masses, right? Then there are other people who's like, well, we want to delegitimize these people, so what can we do to delegitimize these people and make things be, their voices be less heard and less legitimized by also doing the same thing, right? There are people who are aware of this and there are people who are not aware of this. I was fully aware of it. I was watching it, keeping an eye on it and seeing who was doing what and whom and all that stuff. That's neither here nor there, but that was just one of those things that I was keenly aware of at the time. Doesn't mean that the voices weren't heard and things weren't going to change. It just means that there's going to be people who take advantage of those circumstances every single time, unfortunately. Okay, and so that's a macro example. The micro example. The macro example of that is collectively, we started to broaden our horizons cerebrally, consciously, and start to see history from a place that makes more sense, from a space of truth. We started to understand more about our ancestry and the things that human beings are capable of, which we were told were crazy and not possible and all these things. And then some of us chose to take that energy and decide, you know what we can do with that? Help other people who may have within them the ability to do fantastic things, marvelous things, beautiful things, and teach them how to use that in a way that is in some way balanced. And then there's those who are like, we can take full advantage of this energy. This is how we're going to do it. Let's get together and do it. That's been my experience thus far. And so all things have its place though, because without the darkness, there is no light, and vice versa. One defines the other. Now, here's where the problem comes in at. The same thing with the micro examples. The problem comes in that when there are people who pretend they're doing things of light, and they're not doing things of light, and they're actually doing things of darkness. That is an imbalance and incongruent with the truth. That's where it becomes a big, huge problem, because it gets all muddied. Everything becomes gray because you don't know who to trust. If you choose darkness, then own that. It's okay to own that and be yourself. Own that. If you choose the light, be discerning. Know when your behaviors, hopefully, are contributing to things that are not helpful for yourself or anybody else. That is my hope, that we have some level of order and we become more congruent with what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, so there can be balance. Like I said, nothing is inherently evil, nothing is inherently good. There's always some mixture in between somewhere. If it wasn't, we'd be in constant battle and strife. Human beings, animals, everything. Okay? Thinking clearly about all of those dynamics, understand that everybody who developed different ways of consciousness, gifts, understanding, knowledge, is not all light, no matter what they tell you. I can tell you, for example, I've been talking about the ways in which some of the people in the social spheres have been taking advantage of people in turmoil, people waking up and just newly waking up to different ideas of consciousness and belief structures, taking advantage and filling their pockets and filling their numbers up, not giving one care to the end result of how they're doing that. That's what I've witnessed. That's what I see. Now, my perception could be wrong. I'm always leaving room for that because I've been wrong before. Because I can be wrong, I know I could be wrong. And that's a way to keep the ego in some way balanced within yourself. Nothing is as stark black and white as anybody ever perceives it to be. There's always room for interpretation. Now, in order to help you discern what it is that you do want versus what you don't want, whether it be in acting and experiencing, figure out what that is. So if you are one of those people who want to learn more about your history, your ancestry, and knowledge, and to grow any conscious strengths that you may have, decide why you want to learn that. This is a suggestion. This is not a do this, don't do this. Because I find if you tell somebody to don't do something and make it a rule or a law, they're going to inevitably be people who test that don't. Who say, you can't tell me what to do, but that's our natural inclination, is to test the waters, most of us. And so instead of saying don't, I'll suggest that you do this for your highest good if you want it. Okay? Consider what you want to do that for. Why do you want to have it? If you have a career in which, say for instance, you're a lawyer, and you want to grow your intuitive strengths so you can be able to discern what the right thing to do is for you in a certain situation. So you go to someone, you learn more about your intuition, learn more about any specific talents and gifts you might have organically, and to learn how to grow those. Awesome. But if that's your intention, but you go to someone and you learn some other stuff and learn how to do some other stuff and decide to do some other stuff, then you have to accept whatever consequences come along with that. Okay? And this is me saying to you, caution. If you're going to grow different aspects of your consciousness, intuition, and knowledge, be aware of the responsibility of that. Again, this is all caution and suggestions. Be firmly aware of what your intentions are when you do that. Because everything, and I do mean everything, is reciprocal. Now, there are people who in this life can do ugly and harm that we perceive to be ugly and harm to others easily without even a thought of conscious awareness of it. They just got away with it. At least they think so. That's not how this works. It's like, and people like karma. Karma's a bitch. Well, no, it's not. Karma is balance. If we don't have balance in unbalanced things, then everything would just be chaos and nothing would have rhyme or reason. And in some aspects, some people would like to see that happen. I'm not one of them. Although I enjoy some levels of chaos because I understand it has a purpose. In the end, it has a purpose. Like when we go into labor, as a woman, if you're pregnant, you go into labor, you know at the end result, chances are you're going to have a beautiful baby bouncing out of there. But the process of getting up to that, you don't know exactly when the time is going to be. You don't know exactly when the day. They'll give you an estimate, but that is all a chaotic process that has an end result of something. One thing you may not know, or the doctor may not know, is that the baby might need a little bit more time cooking to develop the lungs a little bit more, for example. Or less time cooking because they, estimate that time in a frame based on limited information. And so the same thing is true for our everyday environment. So things that may seem chaotic has a purpose. Things that may seem difficult have a purpose because it's giving birth to something new. And there's a lot of things that have gone on in the last 3 years that was a part of that birthing process. Okay? Now, just as I said earlier, with those who would take advantage of the circumstances and be like, yeah, I'm gonna steal, I'm gonna take, I'm gonna do whatever I want, get what I need to get from me. Karma is also attached to that. And I'm asking you to be aware of it. Not because I'm trying to stop. I just told y'all the other day, I ain't jumping in front of no more bullets for nobody. Although I see it as a passion of my own to tell the truth and be as thoughtful and complete with that truth. And when I say complete, I mean tell all the details that I am able to tell in a way that is balanced and safe for anybody who's a listener. Okay? So, with that, I'll say, for example, spell work. Not all of it's bad. And yes, for those who don't believe in such things, you don't have to believe in them things. That's the good thing that everybody don't believe in that. It's a great thing that everybody don't believe in that. Why? Because of some of the stuff we see going on, and I know I've witnessed going on. Because when you're in imbalance and you're going through some things, or you're angry or whatever, you think it's a great time. And I've thought it a couple times too, but I'm so glad. Again, my guys always come up and say, you know what, you don't want to do that. I'm so glad that I have that. Because, I would have to pay for that eventually. And everybody does. But it's real, and it's great that everybody doesn't understand, know it, or believe in it. Why? Because there'd be a great imbalance within our collectiveness. A collective energy. If everybody was out here knowing how to do spell work and understanding spell work and believing in spell work, honey, as we understand now, there are so many people growing that aspect of knowledge and using it in ways that are in imbalance based on my assessment, my opinion. I could be wrong. But if you just hexing folks because you're mad at them, and not sitting down and trying to heal yourself and understand things from their perspective and all these things. Well, they hexed me. Well, are you strong enough to take that licking or not? And if you're not strong enough to take that lick, back away. Back away and figure out a way to heal yourself and lean on your understanding, spiritual knowledge, guys, and heal yourself. Because if everybody throwing missiles, then everybody's going to end up dead in the end. Nobody's going to win. Okay? That's how all fights end up being. If you can look at a micro example of that gang violence, you shoot this person on that side of the fence, and then they come shoot 2 of yours, and then you go shoot 3 of theirs, and they come shoot 5 of yours. When does it end? Nobody decided to say, you know what, this is not bearing any fruit that is good for either side. Because everybody angry and nobody healing, nobody trying to find out why this happened in the first place. Nobody trying to find solutions. They just want to just have this big old ego battle. And you can participate in that if you want to, but I don't suggest you do if you want any fruitful outcome. If the point is at the end of the day to show people I won, nobody's gonna win that. Nobody's gonna win. However, if there's one person that's like consciously aware that the end result is everybody's grieving consistently and constantly, then a wise one would go sit down somewhere and say, let me see what I can do to resolve this issue so everybody can compromise. We've all taken some losses, and let's see what we can do so that we don't take these losses. What is the end result? Why did we become a gang in the first place? Why did we become a group in the first place? Because our neighborhoods weren't safe and weren't being properly policed in a lot of cases for gang violence. And then it turned into something that was an ego battle, or who was the toughest gang and who had the toughest this and who had the toughest that, and nobody actually is doing anything fruitful for themselves or their environment. A lot of times that's the case. Okay? I'm not saying every time, I'm saying a lot of times that's the case. So if you wanted some more balance, you would figure out a way to create that balance. And that's the same is true in these streets out here. With all these kids learning all these things, it's like, who's teaching them how to heal themselves? Who's teaching them the knowledge they need to know to actually perfect who they are before they open their mouth and speak? I do try to do that now because I don't have it in me to keep seeing what is going on and being like, okay, I'm just gonna let that happen. Now, I could and be perfectly content with that, I guess, in some ways. But, let me tell you a little mini story. When I was very young, I was told I wasn't going to be able to have children. That I had endometriosis so severe that tissue from that area of my body just kept growing in other places in my body, and they kept having to keep it under control. There was no way I can have a baby. I can get pregnant, but it would be overcome. The embryo would be overcome by the endometriosis if I could even get pregnant. Well, they was wrong about that. So I had the first child. It was a very difficult pregnancy, and to this day, I don't even know how that would to be. Then 2 years later, boom, again, but that was twins. I lost one halfway through. And that was rough. And they say, you can't have no more kids. If you have another kid, it'd be a surprise to me. So y'all done said that before, but then, not even a year later, boom, another one. And so because of this miracle beyond miracles, I choose to involve myself in development of the collective. But I also met people along the way, and they've had children, and I've experienced enough of people in life to know that there needs to be some kind of voice of reason sometimes. And I choose to try to be that voice of reason whenever I can be. Now, do I get pissed off sometimes by what I see, what I witness, what I understand? Absolutely. But what my intention, my end goal has always been to illuminate the problem in the most stark way that I can, while also offering a solution to that problem. Because it's easy to complain, y'all. I can do it all day long. The tougher thing is to sit down and sit back and see what we can do about the problems. The tougher thing is to be the one that says, this is not conducive to a good outcome for everybody, regardless of who don't like what you got to say. And not everybody got it in them to do that. Now, I used to be mad about that. I'm going to be honest. It's like, that ain't cool. Like, say, for instance, when I was in the counseling field, just strictly clinical counseling field, there were folks doing things that were not cool, not ethical. Oh, well, they're in charge. They have leadership. They have this and they have that. And if you say something, they're going to come after you. Okay, that's why they keep doing it. At what point are we helpers? Are we really helping anybody if we keep allowing these folks to do this stuff? Well, nobody knows about other things. Keep moving and going on. I say, to me, it sounded the same as the so-called good cop theory. How is there a good cop who don't abuse people and kill people, but they're witness to it and don't do nothing about it? Who's the most guilty party in that? I don't know. I can't even tell you to decide, but I know I'm not going to sit back and let it happen. I'm not going to sit back and pretend like it's not happening, especially when some of that stuff bleeds on to me. Being a witness to something and knowing you can say something about it is not always an easy position to be in, and I've been in that position enough times to tell you I know. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to say nothing. And that's the thing that I'm doing with what I do now. I'm going to be honest with you. It hasn't won me a whole bunch of friends, but the friends I do have are special, and I love them. This is me saying to you, hey, think of the macro of what you are doing. Those of you who are able, who know a thing or two about a thing or two, could understand it in this way. The long-term ramifications of what you are doing now will reach long past your corporeal body is somewhere resting in its final place. Your energy is forever, of course. But and however, what you do now has lasting effects. Did you get into, excuse me y'all, sometimes my nose itch. Did you get into this field of work, study, or education so that you can help the collective evolve? Not in a this person's good and this person's bad, because there's always some area of gray. Are you creating more balance? Are you creating more imbalance? And if your choice is to create imbalance, that's neither here nor there, that's your choice. But I'm asking kindly, if your choice is to create imbalance and you know that's what you're doing, be aware of that and be honest about that, okay? Because those of us, and I choose myself to be an agent of creating balance, that are doing that are facing so much scrutiny and so much strife from those of you who are pretending to be that, okay? And those of you babies who are here to learn, I'm here to help you learn. Not necessarily how to do spell work and magics and all that stuff, because let me tell you something. I learned most of that so that I can learn how to heal. I can learn how to use herbs in a way that's healing and conducive to creating balance in the human system. I learned most of that so that I can learn how to protect myself from outside energies that may be negative or bugs and stuff like this. If you learn something as simple as what a citronella plant does, then you might have missed the boat on the DEET. So DEET is a chemical used to keep bugs away. Citronella, which is a plant which is perfectly safe if you're not allergic to it, can combat what DEET would do. But DEET is harmful in and of itself, so you can put that DEET on you, and then yeah, you might not get bugs biting you, but you also now have a chemical that's introduced into the system that causes harm and damage to the system potentially, right? So I'll be honest, what I've learned about herbs and learned about what is considered spells, all things are spells. Just if you think about it. When you cook, you're taking things from nature and you're putting those things together and creating something else that is alchemy. And for me, all those things are included in that. Understanding the balance of all things, I choose my vibration in that. I choose my behavior in that. And I'm asking you to think, if you could be so kind to incline. Every single thing you do has repercussions well past the things you're doing right now at this moment. So only future tripping and future thinking that I suggest that you do at any given point in time is to consider the ramifications of what you're doing right now and its effect on yourself and others. That's it. I'll see y'all in a little bit. You're loved.